Discover the incredible journey, how failing taught me 5 life-changing lessons you never expected. Jake Adams had always believed in the American dream. Raised by a single mother in a small Midwest town, life wasn't easy. He lost his father in a tragic accident when he was just a boy. But his mother, with her indomitable spirit, taught him resilience. Every day was a new lesson in hard work and hope. As he stood in his cramped garage, wrenches in hand and grease on his forehead, the thought burned bright in his mind: one day, he'd open his own auto repair shop. It would be more than just a garage, it would be a hub for the community, a place where they could come together, share stories, and find laughter in the chaos of life. But the road was anything but smooth. As Jake saved his pennies, life threw him curveballs like a relentless pitcher determined to knock him down. Rising costs due to an economic downturn made saving harder. His aging mother's health declined, forcing him to divert funds to her care. And then there was Kyle, his best friend, whose dream of starting a landscaping business crumbled when the bank denied his loan. Watching Kyle's dreams dashed weighed heavily on Jake's heart. But he pressed on, believing that grit would lead to glory. Finally, after years of blood, sweat, and tears, Jake swung open the doors to Jake's Auto Repair. The modest garage was alive with warmth, filled with the scent of oil and the sound of laughter. Businesses were thriving, and the townsfolk who once relied on him gathered, sharing not just their car problems, but their lives. It felt like a victory until disaster struck. A freak storm swept through, battering his garage just days after the grand opening. The roof caved in, equipment was destroyed, and that feeling of hope turned into desperation. For the first time in his life, Jake felt the ultimate betrayal of dreams. On top of that, a flashy new competitor opened right across the street, using gimmicks and shameless discounts to lure away his loyal customers. What hurt wasn't just the financial strain but the erosion of the values his mother instilled in him: loyalty, integrity, and community. He contemplated shouting out to the community he loved, but fear of failure gripped him. Then, in a moment of frustration, he turned to social media, pouring his heart out about the struggles he faced. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Instead of silence, the response was overwhelming. Neighbors stepped up, organizing a fundraiser, rallying together to breathe life into his dreams once more. Jake's heart surged as he realized the power of community. Just as hope flickered back to life, he faced a shocking betrayal from Kyle, a friend he trusted with everything, now seeking profits over loyalty. Jake stood at a crossroads, heart racing. What is true success? Is it shiny cars and dollar signs, or the bonds forged in tough times? As his world began to unravel, he had to decide: hold on to integrity and choose forgiveness, or strike back and seek justice. With the stakes higher than ever, the community watched with bated breath. Would Jake emerge from this turmoil stronger, or would betrayal shatter his spirit forever? The questions loomed large, leaving everyone to wonder if they truly understood the meaning of success. The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting long shadows that fought against the remnants of despair still lingering in Jake's heart. The sounds of the fundraiser echoed through his shop, filling it with laughter and support, but anxiety squeezed around him like a vice. He could feel the weight of decisions pressing against him. Despite the festive energy outside, Jake couldn't shake off his worry about Kyle. How had it come to this? They were supposed to be partners in chasing their dreams, not adversaries. Would his friend's ambition shatter more than just their relationship? It felt like a betrayal that stretched deep into his soul. As the crowd cheered when the first donation jar amassed a hefty sum, Jake remained torn between gratitude and the sting of Kyle's choices. Just when he thought he could wrestle with these feelings later, a familiar face approached him. It was Mrs. Henderson, an elderly woman who had been bringing her car to Jake's dad when he was just a boy. Her eyes sparkled with warmth, though the lines of worry creased her forehead. "Jake, sweetie," she said, her voice steady but laced with concern. "I heard about the storm. I know how long you've worked for this, and how much it means to you." Her words wrapped around him like a soft blanket, comforting yet undeniable, a reminder that he wasn't alone in this fight. "Thanks, Mrs. Henderson. It really means a lot," he replied, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "But I worry," he trailed off. "Every time life knocks you down, you get back up stronger." She smiled softly, her words reflecting the lessons he learned from his mother. "You build community here. Don't let anyone, even your friend, convince you otherwise." In that moment, clarity washed over him. Mrs. Henderson's unwavering faith reignited something deep within Jake. It wasn't about handing out discounts or flashy ads, true success lay in the bonds they had built over the years. He thought about all the shared moments in that garage, the cars fixed while laughter filled the space, the friendships forged through oil, grease, and a lot of heart. As Mrs. Henderson returned to the gathering, Jake felt resolve surfacing through his doubts. He could make a choice. He didn't have to drown in resentment towards Kyle. Forgiveness could be his shield, integrity his sword. He could show Kyle the worth of community, reach out across the divide instead of building walls. But the question remained, how could he reach out to his friend while still safeguarding what he'd built? Jake took a deep breath, letting the air fill his chest. Maybe it was time for a conversation that could either mend a friendship or reveal the cracks in it for good. With renewed purpose, he stepped outside the shadows of his garage and into the warmth of the gathering. Riding the wave of hope bouncing off everyone, he approached the donation table. With heart pounding, he called out, "Thank you all for believing in me. But let's not stop with just fixing my dream, let us fix our community together." Cheers erupted, and Jake felt a wave of determination surge through him. Amid this chaos and joy, one thought echoed loud and clear: he needed to reach out to Kyle before anything could ruin what they had built. Little did he know, a storm of a different kind was brewing around the corner, one that would test not just their friendship but the very community they had both sworn to protect. Would Jake find the strength to forgive? Or would betrayal ultimately sever the ties that bound them? The evening air hung thick with anticipation, setting the stage for a reckoning that awaited just beyond the horizon. The laughter and excitement carried on as Jake moved through the crowd. Each person he passed offered genuine smiles and reassuring pats on the back, their warmth wrapping around him like a comforting embrace. Yet, beneath this facade of joy, uneasiness gnawed at his insides. Where was Kyle? Did he even care about what was happening? The thought weighed heavily, twisting in his gut. "Hey, Jake!" The shout pulled him from his thoughts. It was Sam, one of the regulars who came in for oil changes and car repairs. He clapped Jake on the shoulder, his exuberance infectious. "Can't believe how much you've raised already. It's incredible." "Thanks, Sam. Every little bit helps." Jake managed a smile, but it didn't reach the corners of his eyes. "How are the kids?" "Oh, you know how it goes. Always in and out of trouble, but they're good," Sam said with a chuckle, letting Jake know that family was still thriving. Jake nodded, feeling a little warmth in his chest. That was what mattered, a community that rallied together, sharing struggles and joy alike. "Listen, if you need anything for the garage, you let me know. I'm happy to pitch in," Sam offered, sincere as ever. "I appreciate that so much," Jake said, his voice thick. There was so much love in the room, yet it felt like a tornado had pulled him into a storm. But still, Kyle lingered in his mind like a shadow. Jake's determination to reach out began to rise again. He scanned the gathering, noticing the true faces of his community, the ones who came to support him without expecting anything in return. He wondered if there was a way to present this reality to Kyle, to remind him what they were about and how truly powerful connection could be. As the sun set, the sky painted with brilliant hues of orange and purple, Jake took a long breath and steeled himself. He stepped away from the donation table and made his way toward the back of the gathering, hoping to catch Kyle before the night slipped away. Just then, he spotted a figure hunched over near the back of the lot. It had to be him. The familiar old jacket gave it away. "Kyle!" Jake called, trying to keep his tone steady and non-confrontational. Kyle turned slowly, his expression unreadable. "Hey!" His voice was flat, void of the energy that once sparked their friendship. Jake approached cautiously, taking in Kyle's downcast eyes. "Can we talk?" "Why?" Kyle's words were sharp, veering close to defensive. "What's there to talk about?" Jake's heart raced. "About us. About what's been happening. I think we need to figure this out before it does more damage. We've built so much together, man. We built a business on what? A foundation of lies?" Kyle shot back, frustration pouring out. Jake took a step closer, realizing they stood on a precipice. "It's not lies. We sold cars, but more than that, we built community. You can't just throw that away because of ambition. I'm just trying to survive in the world out there." Kyle's voice cracked slightly. Jake felt the tension swirling. Jake took a deep breath, hoping his next words could bridge the gap. "But are you really living? Or just running?" The silence stretched between them, thick with unspoken hurt and the memories of dreams shared. Kyle's face faltered, just for a moment, and Jake seized on it. "Let's figure this out together. Let's get back to being what we always wanted to be. Friends first, business partners second. This community needs both of us." But just when Jake thought he might break through, a loud crash echoed from the direction of the main event. All eyes turned toward the ruckus, and Jake's stomach dropped as he saw Alan, a key donor, on the ground, an overturned table nearby. The evening had just taken a darker turn. Would Jake face this new crisis, or would he get caught up in the storm of his friendship? Would Kyle even care? As the crowd erupted into chaos, Jake knew there was no time to waste. They had to act, but could they stand united in this moment of need? Jake's heart raced as he turned to Kyle, desperation swirling in his chest. "We need to go help," he urged, hoping that their shared concern could cut through the tension between them. Kyle hesitated for just a moment before nodding, a flicker of resolve appearing in his eyes. They sprinted toward the chaos, the crowd parting to reveal Alan struggling to get back on his feet, pain etched across his face. Jake's mind raced, recalling the vital contributions Alan had made to their cause. If something happened to him now, the event could unravel overnight. "Al, you okay?" Jake called, fear coloring his voice as he reached Alan's side. Alan groaned, clutching his leg. "Just twisted my ankle, I think. Help me up." Jake and Kyle exchanged glances, an unspoken agreement passing between them. They both knelt to lift Alan, and Jake felt the weight of the moment. He had always admired Alan's enthusiasm and support, and now was the time to show that same loyalty back to him. With a swift motion, they both pulled, and Alan leaned heavily against them. "Thanks, fellas. I thought I was done for," Alan said through gritted teeth. "Let us get you off to the side," Kyle said, a softening in his tone. Jake noticed how the urgency of the moment was peeling back the layers of resentment between them. As they moved Alan to a safe area, Jake felt the atmospheric shift in the crowd. People began to rally around them, concerned whispers spreading like wildfire. It was a reminder of the community they had built, people who flourished under shared moments, celebrating and supporting one another when it mattered most. With Alan safely seated on a nearby bench, Jake turned back to the crowd. "Everyone, let us take a moment. Alan's going to be okay," he shouted, hoping the assertiveness in his voice could stabilize the chaos. "Keep the donations coming, we have a job to do." The crowd answered, voices rising in encouragement, refocusing on their mission. Jake felt a swell of pride. Moments like this could truly illuminate the purpose behind their work. He glanced at Kyle, who was now standing at the edge of the gathered group, looking a bit stunned. An expression like wonder was replacing the frustration that had clouded his eyes a few moments ago. Jake took a step toward him, words bubbling to the surface. "See? We do this together. Community, friendship, that's what makes it all worthwhile." Kyle flashed a fleeting smile, a glimmer of the old camaraderie surfacing. Maybe I've been too focused on myself lately." Before Jake could respond, the crowd's attention shifted as someone called out, "Hey! We're still taking donations. Let us keep the spirit alive." The energy surged back into the gathering, the excitement contagious. People rallied together, their voices blending, laughter mixing with calls for support. But as the evening unfolded, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of their struggles. This incident had pulled them back together, but the road ahead still seemed murky. As the crowd's laughter filled the air, Kyle edged closer, uncertainty written all over his face. "What if things don't go back to normal?" he asked quietly. Jake took a breath, considering their uncertain future together. "We start from here. We build again. Together." But just as hope swelled within him, a chilling breeze cut through the warmth, leaving him with an unsettling thought: what if their past truly was inescapable? With the night stretching ahead, Jake felt the weight of what lay before them. They had begun a journey riddled with challenges, and the next step, fraught with uncertainty, awaited them. Would they rise from the ashes together, or would the shadows of their past pull them apart once again? Jake's thoughts churned, a tangled mass of fear and hope. He glanced back at Alan, who was now surrounded by a small crowd of supporters, grateful faces offering words of encouragement. It reminded him that they were all in this together. Yet Kyle's question lingered. He could sense a shift in the air, an undercurrent that suggested their fragile coalition was still on unsure footing. "Maybe it won't go back to normal," he said, letting the possibility seep out. "But does it have to? What if we create something better?" Kyle frowned, his brow furrowing as he considered Jake's words. "Better how? We've got a lot of history, a lot of baggage. Can we really just move on?" "History doesn't define us," Jake replied, an unexpected resolve hardening in his chest. "It's how we handle it now that matters. We can't keep letting our past decisions haunt us. We can embrace what happened, learn from it, and be better for it." The noise around them was a comforting backdrop, a symphony of determination rising and falling like the tide. Jake felt a spark of inspiration ignite. He turned to face the crowd, their energy palpable. "Listen up," he shouted, raising his voice above the din. "This isn't just about raising money. It's about how we support one another. Every donation, every word of encouragement, it all counts." The crowd quieted down, transforms from scattered chaos to attentive unity. Jake continued, his passion fueling his words. "If any of us falls, we lift each other up. That's how we move forward. Together. Right now, Alan needs us, and we need each other. We show up for one another, always." A wave of response washed over the group, citizens of the community nodding and cheering. Kyle's lips curled into a grin, infectious excitement igniting the space between them. Together they could be more than just individuals, they could be a force, a family that wouldn't falter. At that moment, a young boy stepped forward, holding a wrinkled envelope. "I saved my allowance to help," he said, voice quivering with a blend of pride and uncertainty. "Is this enough?" Jake's heart melted. "Absolutely. Thank you for believing in us." He accepted the envelope, looking down at the small note tucked inside. "Together we can do anything." Kyle stepped closer, his eyes glistening. "Wow, that's powerful. He gets it, doesn't he?" "Yeah," Jake said, glancing at the boy again, who wore a determined look on his face. Jake couldn't help but feel a renewed belief that the world could shift for them, every moment building upon the last, a fine blend of vulnerability and strength. But just then, a loud clash of metal echoed from the back of the crowd. Gasps erupted, and the joyful atmosphere turned electric with confusion and fear. Jake's heart sank as he turned and saw a commotion breaking out. Anger flared up in the crowd, people shouting, pointing fingers, and suddenly it felt like they were teetering on the edge of chaos again. "Kyle!" Jake shouted, panic surging through him. "What's happening?" Kyle's expression twisted into one of concern as he scanned their surroundings. "I don't know, but we need to find out fast." Together they pushed through the crowd, adrenaline surging. The unity they had just built felt fragile, ready to unravel at a moment's notice. Would they be able to pull together again? The question loomed. What would it take for their fragile reconciliation to survive this new wave of turmoil? Jake's heart raced as he and Kyle fought their way through the throng. Shouts grew louder, charged with frustration and confusion. Fingers pointed toward the back, where a group clashed in heated disagreement. It felt like a storm brewing. "Stay close," Jake urged, glancing back to ensure the young boy was still with them. He caught a glimpse of the kid's worried face, a mix of excitement and fear ringing in his eyes, the very innocence of hope in a world that was threatening to turn chaotic once more. As they neared the source of the ruckus, Jake spotted familiar faces, older members of the community, fans of Alan, squaring off against newcomers. One man stood at the center, red-faced and animated, his arms waving passionately. "This isn't just about Alan. It's about our future," he cried, voice strident over the swell of voices. Kyle nudged Jake. "What the hell is happening?" "I don't know," Jake replied, trying to keep his voice steady despite the tension strangling the air. "But we need to stop this before it gets out of hand." Pushing through the last few feet, Jake stepped into the fray, arms raised. "Everyone, please!" he shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos like a knife. "Let's just breathe for a minute. We're all here for a reason, right?" The crowd paused, some faces turning toward him, eyes flickering with recognition. Jake could see the uncertainty laid bare across their brows, old wounds surfacing as the weight of shared history blanketed them. "Alan needs us to be united," he continued, grounding himself in the palpable hope he sensed surrounding him. "We owe it to him to set aside our differences, if only for today. Just think, this is about lifting each other up. About moving forward." The agitated murmurs calmed a bit. A few stepped back, their energy starting to shift. "Moving forward?" The red-faced man scoffed. "How can we move forward when some of our own don't even care about the consequences of their actions?" His voice cracked, a mix of hurt and anger spilling out. Jake's stomach twisted. This was deeper than he had imagined, a fracture rooted in mistrust. "I know we all feel the weight of our history," he said, heart pounding. "But if we don't truly try, how will we ever heal? Look around. Alan's fight is our fight." Slowly, a murmur of agreement spread through the crowd, sparking little embers of courage in their expressions. But Jake could feel the battle still raging, not just between each other, but within themselves. "Look," Kyle added, stepping forward too, "we're all human. We make mistakes. Yes, things haven't always been perfect, but now is our chance to change that." A woman in the back began to clap, hesitant at first, but it soon turned into a ripple of applause that began to wash over the group. Hesitant faces transformed into nods, and murmurs of understanding peppered the air, but just as he felt hope crack the surface, the red-faced man shook his head vehemently. "You think this is all it takes? You don't know what's at stake." The tension in Jake's chest tightened again. "Then tell us. What's at stake?" The crowd fell silent, all eyes drawn to the man. The shifting energy hung heavy, waiting for a release. "What happens if we fail again?" he growled, voice trembling. "What if this is only the beginning of another disaster?" The question reverberated through the crowd like a haunting echo, and for a moment, all Jake could do was stare. What if they were already too late? Was it really possible for them to create something better, or was it just a fantasy? The air crackled between them, vulnerability mingling with fraught uncertainty, and in a flash, a realization hit him. They wouldn't know until they tried. Then let us make sure we're ready to face it together. Jake shouted, arguing against the mounting doubt. Could it be enough? Would they stand united against the looming chaos, or were they destined to spiral back into division? The answers hung in the balance, and with that fear came the heaviness of a choice that could reshape everything for them. What would they choose when faced with the truth? The silence stretched, every heartbeat echoing like a drum in Jake's ears. He watched as the red-faced man, still simmering with anger, wrestled with his thoughts. The crowd held its breath, poised on the brink of something monumental. Someone needs to speak for Alan. Another voice called from the back, a woman dressed in faded jeans and a well-worn t-shirt. We can't let his vision die with him. That lit a spark. One by one, voices joined in, weaving a cacophony of shared dreams and fears. Jake felt the energy shift even further. Contact. Mosquitoes buzzing on the skin. Exactly. Yelled a man with deep-set eyes. Alan believed in us, but he also knew we had to fight for what we want. For change. Jake's pulse quickened. This could be the tipping point. The tension bubbling within the crowd was like a pot simmering over. Let us remember, Jake added, his voice louder, change doesn't come easy. And it's not about forgetting what happened, it's about learning from it. Nods rippled through the assembly. It felt like a fragile thread connecting them moment by moment, fragile yet vital. At that instant, a voice broke through the noise, soft, but carrying strength. A young girl, not more than 10, her hair in a messy bun and fingers twisted together. My dad said Alan was a hero. Heroes don't give up, right? A warmth spread through the crowd, the innocence of her words pushing aside mounds of doubt, if only for a moment. The collective breath they held began to release, slowly, as chuckles and weary smiles softened hardened expressions. Kids have a funny way of seeing truth, Kyle whispered to Jake, watching as the girl's bravery sparked recognition in the hearts of those who had almost lost their way. But then the red-faced man raised a finger, challenging. And if we lose again? You think we can just pick up and carry on? It'll break us. That's when we pick each other up. Shouted Jake, fatigue mixing with fervor in his voice. That's when we find our strength together. Alone, we might fall, but together we can stand back up. Are you really willing to risk that? The man replied, challenging, but Jake saw the flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. Did he believe? A tense moment passed before someone in the crowd shouted, we have to take that risk. For Alan's sake. A ripple of agreement surged forward as more joined in the call. Jake felt it, a shift from doubt to resolve, uncertainty to unity. Let us make a plan, the woman from before added, her voice rising above the clamor. Let us show them what we can do, for Alan and for each other. It starts now. Cheers erupted, filling the air with energy. With each voice, Jake felt the weight lifting. But beneath the celebration, a gnawing worry lingered. What if the pushback from outside was stronger than their resolve? As they began to organize, voices growing clear with purpose, Jake stole a glance at Kyle, who wore a smile, but a flicker of unease danced in his eyes too. This is just the beginning, isn't it? Kyle said. Yes, but we're not alone anymore, Jake replied, cracking a half smile, holding on to the hope surrounding them, yet deep in his gut, a question lingered. Could they hold on long enough to make a real change? Would the past come back to haunt them when they needed to face the future together? The scene unfolded like a story, each person finding their role, but Jake couldn't shake the feeling that someone, somewhere, was watching and waiting for just the right moment to strike. What would happen next, when shadows loomed closer, and doubt threatened to unravel their fragile unity? Would they truly be ready when the time came? The air buzzed with excitement, voices swirling into one determined chorus. Jake could see the fire igniting in people's eyes, as they took their first steps towards a collective destiny. Plans began to take shape, small groups forming, ideas sparking, hands gesturing wildly with enthusiasm. Let us gather the stories, the woman suggested. We need to remind people of Alan's vision, of who he was, what he fought for. It can't just be a memory, it must be a rallying cry. A wave of agreement swept through the crowd, an undercurrent of belief flowing strong. Jake felt a sense of pride swell within him. This was it. This was why they had come together. As he moved from group to group, he noticed individuals pouring out their thoughts and ambitions. There was energy in the air, almost electric. Jake became caught up in a surge of determination, brainstorming ways to spread their message. Flyers, social media, even a town hall meeting. No idea was too small, no voice too quiet. "Remember this day," Kyle said beside him, his gaze sweeping over the sea of faces filled with hope. "We're changing things." But as they planned, that nagging sense of danger crept back in. What if the red-faced man's doubts came back to life? Jake's heart raced, and he couldn't ignore that shadow looming over them. He turned to Kyle, concern etched on his face. "If we push too hard, they might push back harder." Kyle nodded, but a steely resolve shone in his eyes. "This isn't just about us anymore, Jake. It's about everyone who believed in Alan, everyone who wants a better future. We can't stop or hold back." The crowd began to break up, fervor buzzing with excitement. Small groups roamed away to make phone calls or gather supplies. Everyone had a role to play, a part to act out in the unfolding drama. Jake took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment settle on him. As he turned to join a nearby group, a familiar figure caught his eye. The red-faced man lingering at the edge of the gathering, arms crossed and face set hard. Jake felt a rush of emotions hit him, curiosity battling with fear. Could they have swayed him? Did he harbor lingering doubts still? "I have to talk to him," Jake muttered, his heart racing. The fleeting moment of courage surged through him, and before he could second-guess himself, he made his way toward the man. This was a crucial encounter that needed to happen. Once they were face to face, Jake searched for the right words, but he saw the other man's doubts alive in his wary posture. "I get it. You're worried," Jake said, his voice steady. "Everyone is. Nothing worth fighting for comes without risk." The red-faced man exhaled sharply, though his eyes softened slightly. "And when it doesn't work out? When more pain comes? You think we should gamble with that?" Jake's insides churned. He needed to tackle this head-on. "But if we don't try, we'll just surrender to the same problems. We owe it to Alan. We owe it to ourselves." A flicker of something passed over the man's face. Was it realization, or fear? Jake couldn't tell, but he felt the stakes rising higher with each passing moment. Could he win him over? "Time is running out," Jake added. "We have to take the leap. Together." Just as the man opened his mouth to respond, a distant shout cut through the murmur of conversation, freezing the moment in time. Jake turned to see a figure approaching fast, the urgency radiating from them like a warning signal. "We have a problem," the newcomer shouted, breathless. The crowd's excitement drained, replaced by a heavy tension. Jake's heart thudded. What was unfolding, and who was pulling the strings behind the scenes? As confusion rippled through the assembly, Jake felt the eyes of his community on him, searching for answers. Would they really be ready to face whatever came next? He could almost feel the darkness creeping in, threatening to engulf the hope they had fought so hard to kindle. Would he have the strength to guide them through, or was this moment just a fragile flicker poised to be snuffed out? Jake's heart raced as he surveyed the crowd. Faces that had moments before been beaming with hope now twisted with confusion. The newcomer, still panting, struggled to catch his breath. "What is going on?" Jake asked, stepping forward. "There's been a threat," the man replied, his voice shaky. Some group wants to stop us. They're organizing, gathering their own followers. They don't want us to succeed." The shock rippling through the crowd felt like ice water poured over a fire. Conversations abruptly hushed and anxious murmurs filled the air. People began looking around at each other, uncertainty blooming in their eyes. The vision they had just ignited seemed suddenly vulnerable, as if it might flicker out any moment. "Who? Who are they? Kyle shouted from the back, his voice strained. The newcomer shook his head. I didn't see them, but I overheard. They're rallying folks in the town, spreading their own stories. We're not the only ones trying to make our voices heard. Jake felt a heaviness settle in his chest. Memories of the red-faced man flickered through his mind. Anxiety rushed back in, like a tide reclaiming the sandy shore. If people were truly gathering against them, would their efforts be in vain? But then he saw the determination that had sparked moments before wasn't completely gone. It simmered just beneath the surface of those startled faces. Jake's instinct told him to harness that energy, to refocus their aim. This isn't the end. This is just the beginning. He projected, raising his voice above the rising tide of uncertainty. We have Alan's vision. We have our stories. They can try to silence us, but we are stronger when we stand together. We can turn this into our rallying cry. The crowd stirred, heads nodding with rising conviction. Slowly, smiles started resurfacing, emboldened by the spirit Jake had ignited in them. The red-faced man remained silent in the background, arms still crossed, tension still evident on his face, yet the flicker of doubt seemed to fade just a bit. Let us gather our stories, just as we planned, Jake continued, his own heart thumping with renewed fire. Let us send out flyers that share Alan's dream, show people who we really are and what we stand for. We need to reach out to the other groups, to share hope instead of fear. We have to show them we won't back down. Hands shot up, questions flying as plans sparked back to life. People began writing, calling, organizing, determination fueling action. Jake felt a surge of optimism. This could be the turning point. But even in that moment of hope, the nagging thought pricked at the back of his mind. What if it wasn't enough? The shadow of the unknown loomed just beyond their reach. They had rallied well, but who were their hidden enemies? Just as he thought he would lose himself in the whirlwind of plans, the red-faced man stepped forward, his voice surprisingly steady. You really believe in this, don't you? I do, Jake replied, meeting his eyes defiantly. And I think you do too. We can't let fear dictate who we are. The red-faced man seemed to ponder this, a flicker of something unnameable possibility, maybe crossing his face. But then, as Jake turned back to the crowd, the sound of approaching footsteps echoed through the street, growing louder, more chaotic. Shadows began to form in the distance, unyielding and menacing. Everyone, stay together. Jake urged, adrenaline surging through him. He stepped closer to the encroaching dark, heart hammering against his ribs. What were they facing? Would this challenge bring them together even stronger? As the first faces came into view, Jake held his breath, bracing for the storm. What were they truly up against? Would they dismantle everything they had built? In that charged moment, uncertainty hung thick in the air, threatening to drown them or forge an unbreakable bond. Could they truly unite against the impending tide? The tension crackled like electricity in the air as the shadows approached, revealing figures from the outskirts of town, well-known faces that were both allies and rivals at once. Jake's heart raced as he stepped forward, his voice steady but urgent. Everyone, stay close. We need to show them who we are. He could feel the weight of his community at his back. Neighbors, friends, and even people he barely knew were poised like a coiled spring, ready to react. It was the moment they had been waiting for, the moment to fight for their dreams and the legacy of Alan, who had brought them all together. As the figures broke through the darkness, Jake recognized John, a local business owner, leading the charge with a group of supporters behind him. Yet, there was something different about John, a fierce determination that lit up his features, as if he had come to reclaim not just his place in the community, but the very spirit of it. Jake! He shouted, his voice rising above the hum of disbelief that spread through the crowd. We heard what was happening, and we're here to support you. It's time we put our differences aside. A ripple of relief and excitement ran through the gathering. The air thick with uncertainty suddenly felt clearer, a shared purpose emerging from the shadows that had once threatened to overtake them. People stepped forward, forming a circle of unity around Jake. "Your bravery has shaken us all. We can't let fear stop us from moving forward," John continued, glancing back at his group. "Let us fight together for what we believe in, for Alan's vision." The crowd erupted into applause and cheers, the momentum shifting in their favor. Grateful tears sprang to Jake's eyes as he glanced at Kyle, who stood wide-eyed, his expression a mix of hope and disbelief. Maybe this was what it took for their community to truly rise, to unite against the fears that had threatened to divide them. "Let us remind them who we are," Jake shouted, galvanizing the energy around him. "We are not just individuals, we are a family, bound by our stories and the dreams we share." Bolstered by Jake's words, the crowd took up the chant, an anthemic rallying cry for unity. "Together! Together! Together!" It echoed through the streets as arms raised high and hearts thumped in rhythm. That heartbeat pulsed with life, a testament to their relentless spirit. They began to march as one, a sea of hope flowing toward the center of their town, ready to reclaim it. The darkness hung on the periphery, shadows that whispered of division and fear. But underneath that surface, an undeniable light shone brighter than ever, a light that was their heritage, their past woven into the future. When they reached the town square, an unexpected sight met them. Other groups gathered, armed with flyers and stories, spreading the same hopeful message that Alan had championed. It became clear, they weren't alone in their struggle, and that realization ignited something deep within Jake. Turning around to face his community, Jake took a breath, letting the air fill his lungs. "Together, we can embrace our past, and build our future. We're stronger than the forces outside, and we will not falter." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd, igniting their courage even further. Hands reached out to one another, bridging gaps of distrust and uncertainty. Then, in that moment, something extraordinary happened. The red-faced man stepped forward, eyes shining with newfound clarity. "I'm not here to fight," he declared, voice booming like thunder, the tension in his stance faltering. "I'm here to stand with you. Alan inspired us all. Let us honor his memory and create something better together." Joy erupted, and the cheers became a crescendo, filling the evening sky as they rallied around this unexpected support. They were no longer just a collection of individuals, they stood as a unified force ready to reshape their community for the better, where love and connection prevailed. But Jake knew they couldn't stop there, plans needed to be set in motion. "Let us start bringing our stories to life," he exclaimed, eyes sparkling with determination. "We'll push through every barrier in our way. We'll organize a fair to celebrate Alan, an event where everyone can come together and share what this community truly stands for. We'll show them that we will rise, no matter what." With renewed energy, they set work in motion, collaborating and brainstorming, the momentum building like a wave. They created a space where everyone could share their hopes, dreams, and fears, joining forces to reclaim the narrative. As night descended, the square filled with laughter, music, and voices joining together. Jake and Kyle found themselves side by side, hearts full. "We did it, Jake," Kyle murmured, a radiant smile lighting up his face. "Together," Jake affirmed, grasping his friend's shoulder, thankful for this new chapter. "This is just the beginning." And beneath the stars, among the laughter and unity that filled the air, one truth became clear: they were not just in it for themselves, but for each other. They had stepped out of the darkness into a brighter dawn, a testament to the power of resilience, love, and camaraderie. This journey would be long, full of challenges and triumphs, but they would face it all together, united in hope and purpose. Now, I have one last thing to say: you need to subscribe now to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and comment your reactions and feelings about this amazing ending. Share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to share. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting this channel through these actions.